I wanted to make a video to talk a little bit more and discuss a few more details about the noting technique. The noting technique where we're using labels to help us note. So our idea is to create mindful awareness, of the present moment, moment to moment, moment to moment. And we are doing this by actively noticing or noting the phenomena of body-mind happening in our experience. The phenomena of the body, the feeling body, the hearing, the seeing, tasting, smelling, and the phenomena of the thinking mind. So in order to do this, we have a little help. This help is to label our experience. So labeling, using a brief mental label to label each phenomena as they appear, is something that aids our faculty of noticing, our faculty of noting experience. And this in turn aids our ability to just be aware of our experience as it happens. So whenever we label something, it's like we briefly soak into it. We briefly focus. All of our attention becomes what the object of the label is. So if we're labeling just the rising and falling of the belly, we're labeling rising, and all our attention is just in the sensation, the feeling of rising. And if we label something else, we label thinking, for a brief moment, all our attention goes towards feeling the act of thinking. And likewise with the other phenomena. So it helps us to clearly and briefly soak into it, to penetrate each object of consciousness as it arises. We want to note and label whatever is happening in the present moment. This helps us to break up experience into more manageable parts. So if you're thinking and worrying about something huge, just labeling the activity and what the components of that activity of worrying is: thinking, unpleasant feeling, tension, discomfort, worrying, rising, falling, worrying, thinking, unpleasant. Just helps to break apart and tease apart what are the components. And this helps to manage the experience. This helps us to be aware with a more manageable small components of that experience. And to start to tease apart what is there really behind this huge chunk which is bothering us. So really a label is just a small tool to help us. And there are several things that we can do or adjust the way we label, which can help facilitate our noting. So the one thing is the mental tone of voice that we're using while labeling. So the labeling should really just be a gentle, low, matter-of-fact noticing of the experience. If you make the label very emotionally strong, like if you're labeling thinking, 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 there will also be a strong reaction to that. But if you're just matter-of-fact, like a post-it note, thinking, what else is here? Sitting, touching, gentle matter-of-fact. And you can also modulate the way that you note. So sometimes very small, subtle, barely a whisper of a label is necessary to help facilitate awareness. Just barely thinking, hearing, or even less. You don't even have to say the word in your head, it can just be thinking, or just knowing thinking. And other times when you're very scattered, very frustrated, very annoyed, very triggered, you might have to use the labels a bit more strongly. You have to notice anger, hatred, so that you can even begin to observe clearly. If you try to use very subtle labels in that instance, it's very difficult to observe the anger. So you have to choose a little bit for yourself how to modulate and use the power of labeling. Really, most of the awareness is going towards noticing the phenomena, noticing the feeling of the phenomena of body and mind. And just about 5% or so, 5% of your awareness is used for giving the label. So sometimes the label will be a wild guess, sometimes it will feel accurate on the spot. Sometimes what you label will disappear immediately, sometimes it will stay. But try not to make the label too strong or give too much attention, like then it just becomes about focusing on that word you're saying. No, it's about focusing on the phenomena and using that label to help you focus on the phenomena in the moment. You might have this experience that you sit down in your sitting meditation and suddenly your mind keeps labeling walking. You keep labeling standing, or right goes touch, left goes touch, and you're sitting. So it's not really happening. So there's something off there. It feels like you're just repeating mindlessly a mantra. So one must ask themselves the question, am I really using the labels to observe directly the experience? Or is it just a mindless thing I'm repeating? If it's a mindless thing that's being repeated, probably it will just continue in your sitting meditation because it's something you repeated without consciousness. It should be a label that is more like a comment, a side note to what you are directly experiencing in the moment. So a few of the commonly asked questions about labeling. Sometimes it feels you're using a lot more thinking than you need because the labels are a form of thought. You can hear this thought that labels what you're experiencing. And the key here is really just to use as little as possible, as I was just saying. Just use less and a more quiet, more subtle form of labeling if you feel the label and the thought behind the label is becoming very loud. Also, no need to dwell too much on getting the perfect label. No need to think about what just happened. Is that the right label? Was it really thinking? Was it wondering? Was it forget about it? Just label that. Oh, worrying or doubting, and move on. And that's where the breath or the body is so helpful as a point to keep resetting back to. The second question is about guesses. So sometimes your labels really feel like wild guesses. And sometimes it will be like this, but over time we are developing the skill to recognize quickly and instantaneously in the moment what is appearing. And so the labels become more and more second nature. So maybe you're already experiencing this, that your labels, you don't even have to think about it anymore, but they're just coming, especially for the phenomena that are very common, like hearing or rising or falling or walking. Just in the awareness of it, you're already putting the label there. It becomes a bit more difficult with more things you don't see as often, weird thoughts, weird sensations. You might have to think a bit more about what label to give that. But over time, you start, it's almost like territory that becomes more and more familiar, like a collection of things that you can recognize quickly and suddenly and immediately as they appear. And that's the practice, where the practice is leading. The other question is about if the label is a bit late. So sometimes it feels, oh, I'm labeling a little bit late after the fact, after it has already happened. And that's really normal in the beginning, that the label is a little bit a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds late. You don't need to try and catch up everything that you missed, but just allow yourself to slowly decrease that delay, to try and label more in real time what's happening, rather than always after the fact. But this is also something that as you get better at recognizing phenomena immediately, it becomes more second nature. Sometimes it feels that the labels interfere with phenomena. So labeling it or observing it changes what is actually there. And that's also normal. And that's actually a good thing, because the more we get to just pure awareness, the less things can survive our focus, our label. When we see a thought for what it is, in the moment it arises, it disappears again. It cannot survive pure awareness. Pure awareness sees through the fabricated, empty nature of phenomena. So you might feel that you are interfering with the labels. So it's good when that awareness is just there and there's a letting go and unsticking of it. That's the faculty of awareness. But if the label is interfering in terms of thinking more about what's happening, then just always reset and back to the body, back to the breath. What is the point of labeling? The point of labeling is to facilitate noticing, to facilitate mere awareness of the phenomena of body and mind. And what is the point of that? The point of that is to develop mere awareness and equanimity towards each experience. We see clearly, we soak into the experience clearly, and there's less coagulation, less friction around the experience. We just let it arise and pass away by nature. Our habitual way is to hold or to push away, so there's friction. It's like something is coming through and we hold it, or we tense up against things. But the mere awareness is just to allow the thing to appear and disappear in the same moment. And we do that by seeing it clearly, by seeing it with non-interference, non-judgmentally, remembering this open hand gesture, just seeing it, and in the seeing, it's already passing away. Thank you for sitting through this video. Those were some of the main questions, and I hope that helps a little bit with your practice. Good luck.